There's a kind of ache that doesn't show on the outside, a loneliness that doesn't come from being alone, but from feeling misunderstood again and again, even in the middle of a crowd. Maybe you felt that ache before. Maybe you're carrying it now. I know what it means to sit in silence after trying to explain yourself, only to feel more invisible afterward. I know the fatigue of building bridges with your words, only to watch them collapse under someone else's disinterest. There's nothing quite as disheartening as opening your heart, carefully choosing your words, hoping someone will finally see you, and still walking away unseen. But let me offer you something that changed my life and may very well change yours too. What if I told you that needing to be understood, that relentless craving to be heard, validated, and confirmed, might be the very thing closing your heart to the deepest kind of connection? What if needing to be seen is blocking you from truly seeing? When I first started teaching men and women how to speak in public, I thought I was teaching performance. But what I learned over time was this: people weren't afraid of speaking. They were afraid of not being understood. They feared the silence after their truth, the blank stare, the dismissal, the correction. And so they closed up. They performed instead of speaking from the soul. And that's when they became strangers to themselves. Here's the strange paradox of life. When you release the need to be understood, you suddenly begin to understand others. And with that understanding, you create something rare and sacred, a space where love can breathe, even without words. There's a reason why the great spiritual teachers spoke more about listening than arguing, about presence more than performance. Be quick to hear, slow to speak, says the book of James. It's not just a call to humility, it's a key to healing. Because when you stop demanding to be seen, you begin seeing clearly. Now, I'm not telling you to silence your truth. I'm not asking you to erase yourself. But I am inviting you to shift your inner posture. There's a difference between expressing yourself from fullness and pleading to be filled by someone else's approval. One is grounded, the other is starving. So many of us walk through life emotionally hungry. We want someone, anyone, to hear us, to understand what we've endured, to validate the choices we had to make. But the truth is, not everyone can give us that. And chasing it endlessly leaves us drained, bitter, and even more alone. But when you become the one who understands, when you carry the lamp instead of waiting for someone to bring the light, you stop being at the mercy of others. You gain a quiet, unshakable strength. You become free. Maybe no one told you this, but you don't have to be understood to be at peace. You don't have to be validated to be whole. And you don't need applause to know you're walking the right path. Sometimes the path is silent, and yet it's sacred. When I first understood this truth, it didn't come through theory. It came through failure. You see, I used to think that if I just explained myself better, if I just found the right words, people would finally understand me. I thought connection was something you earned by crafting perfect sentences. But life humbled me, over and over again. There was a time I tried to win someone's understanding the way a man might try to catch the wind, tirelessly, fruitlessly. I gave reasons, I gave apologies, I gave explanations. But no matter how much I gave, It wasn't enough. They had already decided who I was in their mind, and nothing I said could rewrite that. It broke something in me. But, and this is important, it also revealed something deeper. I realized I was trying to use words to fill a space that could only be filled by presence. I was asking them to understand what I hadn't yet embraced in myself. There's a subtle form of self-betrayal that comes from begging others to see you. You start performing instead of being. You start adapting instead of becoming. And the more you do it, the more estranged you feel from your own spirit. That's when I began to do something radical. I began to listen more, not just to others, but to myself. I stopped fighting for approval, and I started becoming more curious, not just about my wounds, but about the wounds of others. I began to notice the pain behind harsh words, the fear behind control, the confusion behind pride. And what amazed me was this: when I truly understood someone, when I stood in their shoes, even for a moment, my need to be understood vanished. It was replaced by something deeper: compassion. True power, I've come to see, isn't in speaking louder. It's in seeing deeper. It's in being the one who understands, not because you're better, but because you're free. There is a stillness that comes to the soul when you no longer need to prove anything, when you stop waiting for someone to validate your past or approve your healing. That stillness is the beginning of peace. And here's something that might surprise you. Once you carry that peace within, people begin to feel it. They might not understand you with their minds, but they'll feel safe around you. They'll open up to you, not because you demanded it, but because you offered it first. You become like the oak tree that stands still while storms rage around it. Others may not know how you weathered it, but they'll feel its shade. And sometimes that's all the understanding you'll ever need. You don't need to beg for love or chase validation or explain every scar. Instead, you can become the person who sees, who holds, who understands, and who walks with dignity, even when misunderstood. You know, one of the most misunderstood forms of strength is restraint. To hold back when you could defend yourself. To remain silent when every part of you wants to justify, to correct, to be heard. But sometimes, and you'll feel this in your bones, the most powerful answer is no answer at all. I remember a man in my class years ago, a seasoned businessman with a hard face and a heavier past. He came not for public speaking, but for something else he couldn't quite name. During one of our sessions, he broke down. Not from grief, but from the quiet realization that for decades he'd been trying to force understanding from a world that never once asked him how he felt. He said, "I've spent my life shouting through silence, and now I just want peace." That sentence stayed with me, because many of us do the same. We shout, not always with volume, but with effort. We try so hard to be seen. But what if the breakthrough comes not when we are finally understood, but when we stop needing to be? The ones who heal the deepest are often the ones who have made peace with being misunderstood. Now hear me clearly. I'm not telling you to accept injustice or endure emotional abuse. That's not peace, that's suppression. What I'm talking about is different. It's the inner liberation that comes when you no longer hinge your identity on whether or not someone gets you. When you say, "It's okay, I know who I am. I've looked into the mirror of my soul, and I've made peace with what I see. Whether or not others understand, I will still walk with grace." There's something sacred about a soul that can hold space for others without collapsing in on itself. That's what maturity is, the ability to stay rooted in yourself while gently leaning in to someone else's world. I've learned this through my own scars, my own stumbles. There were moments I was deeply misunderstood, as a writer, as a teacher, as a man. But those moments didn't define me. They refined me. You don't need to get louder. You need to get stiller. You don't need more explanations. You need more presence. And presence isn't about performance. It's about groundedness. Knowing who you are and being okay if others don't. Because here's the mystery. Once you become that grounded, you begin to understand everything. You begin to see pain as a language, silence as a conversation, misunderstanding as a mirror. And most importantly, you begin to feel a presence within you, a divine companionship that says, "Even if they never understand you, I do." That presence may come to you through faith, through prayer, through stillness, but it's always there, waiting to be felt beneath the noise of needing approval. And when you touch that presence, the need to be understood fades, and in its place, a quiet, radiant dignity begins to grow. There's a moment in every journey of healing when you must decide, will I keep waiting to be seen? Or will I start seeing others? Will I continue searching for someone to read the chapters of my pain? Or will I become the one who reads between the lines of someone else's silence? This decision changes everything. It moves you from emotional dependence to spiritual responsibility. It transforms you from the one who aches to be loved into the one who is love. And that, my friend, is the beginning of leadership, not in the corporate sense, but in the eternal one. The kind of leadership that starts with your presence, your stillness, your capacity to hold light in a dark room without needing to be noticed for it. True connection is not built through constant explanation. It's built through resonance. And the only way to resonate with others, truly, is to understand them from within, even if they never understand you in return. That's what it means to love like God loves, to hold space, even when it's never reciprocated, to forgive, even when the apology never comes, to choose peace, even when chaos feels justified. You don't need to be perfect to live this way. You just need to be committed to becoming the kind of person you yourself were once hoping to meet. Start small, with a breath, with a soft response when someone is harsh, with a question instead of a conclusion. I wonder what pain made them speak this way. Not to excuse the behavior, but to see beneath it. It's not easy, but the most meaningful paths rarely are. They are walked slowly, humbly, often alone, but never without purpose. And when you walk this path, something happens. You begin to attract peace instead of conflict, stillness instead of drama, And people, good people, will find their way to your presence, not because you demanded their understanding, but because you radiated it. You become the lighthouse, not the ship lost in stormy seas. The one who stays, even when others leave. The one who listens, even when no one else does. The one who is, deeply, quietly, and powerfully, who you were created to be. And let me say this before I close. You are not broken. You are becoming. Every wound has shaped your wisdom. Every silence has deepened your soul. And now you have the power to offer what this world needs most. Not more opinions, but more understanding. Not more noise, but more grace. From this day forward, I invite you to release the weight of needing to be understood. Let it fall from your shoulders like an old coat you've outgrown. And in its place, wear the quiet strength of one who understands. First, yourself, and then the world. Walk gently, speak kindly, see deeply. And remember, even if they never understand you, you are still worthy. You are still chosen. You are still enough. This is your new beginning. Let it be grounded in stillness. Let it be guided by grace. Let it be lived with love.